Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Klaus here. You're somebody that's been, behind a really important company today when it comes to structuring organizations, putting the right people in their places, and enabling them to really be mobile and to move around. And you've been at this for quite some time. You've got an amazing amount of experience in this space. We've also been at some other, incredible companies beforehand. So you've taken some great lessons along the way. And I think today, like we're trying to find the right people. Every organization is, and it can be quite difficult at times to do that. And the top companies in the world really have the right organizational structures, and they have the right individuals there. So I'm excited to have you here, kind of just get into your journey and all of that.
Cool. Well, nice to meet you. Looking forward to our conversation then.
Awesome. So kind of just going back to the beginning, like what interested you in the space that you're in now? Like what made you want to do what you're doing today? And specifically also like the business development side of things. Like that's a fascinating side. You're always presenting new ideas. How did this passion of yours start?
Well, I had nothing to do with the relocation space. I didn't even know that such thing existed, corporate relocation, that companies spend a lot of money to relocate talent or attract new talent to their headquarters or other offices, and that's global. So it's actually a niche industry, but it's a big industry. It's a very important industry, as you mentioned. Companies need the best talent. They need it quickly. They need it in different location. Has a lot to do with location strategy. Obviously, they cannot grow. They cannot open different facilities, different manufacturing sites, or anything if they don't have the right talent. And I came into that because my wife and I relocated from Germany, from Düsseldorf to Los Angeles, and we were on a relocation package. It was a corporate relocation, and if you think of a very, very, very bad experience, we had this very bad experience. It was actually interesting for me to see that this industry is functioning without technology at all. So I was surprised that I was introduced to a company or companies that called relocation management companies. They're like a general contractor. They have a person that talks to you, and then they tell you, well, there will be somebody calling you from the immigration firm, and then there will be somebody calling you from the tax firm, and then there will be somebody calling you from the moving firm, and then there will be somebody calling you from a temp housing firm, and then there will be somebody calling you from a destination service provider firm, and then there will be somebody. I mean, all of this. And I go like, wait a second, I have to take all these calls, and they say, oh, it's not only the calls, you just have to answer questions and you have to be there. And I go like, wow, this seems to be something that is more complex than I was thinking, especially when you relocate with a little girl. I mean, at the time, right? And a spouse that goes like, oh, I thought it's going to be so easy for us. They make it easy. Well, I started a few companies in my career and sold them early on after grad school. My first one, I wanted to take public in Germany in 2000, also a technology firm, and dot-com bubble burst. I had a minority investor in it, a large consulting and private equity firm, and I stayed there for 9 years and decided to move to the US. And I go like, wow, this is crazy, this industry with no technology. So I always admired, the technology, or what technology brought us as a consumer, right? If you're thinking of Travis Kalanick's Uber, right? I go like, wow, look at this, how it changed, how a very dysfunctional taxi industry became to something what I use every day. Like if you, think of the times back, you wait at the dispatch and, the driver drives you anyway, they ask for cash. You say, I don't have any cash. So I mean, the experience was so bad at the time. And then look at Amazon, where you can buy anything and get it in hours, and all of this. That's how we live as consumers. But on the other hand, relocation industries, back in in Stone Age, they still operate with spreadsheets, with emails and phone calls. I mean, there's no live scheduling like what you would see on an open table, right? Just to schedule a call or anything. So I go like, this is interesting in a way for me to disrupt, and I like disruption. And that's how I looked into it. I looked into the space, try to figure out, where's the gap, where the white spaces, and started Velocity in 2016.
Mhm. So, when you began on this kind of mission, like how did you what was the thinking of like how best you could have impact right away? Because there's lots of spaces that you could apply your talents to when it comes to relocation. It's a pretty broad category. Why did you gravitate towards the space that you're in now?
Well, I mean, I always thought tech needs to connect people, and I thought about a single point of access, right, which isn't there. As I just told you, there are so many different verticals in there, and none of these verticals are really tech, not even tech enabled, right? So you have the large, tax and immigration firms, and they're focusing really on their tax vertical, or in their, on their immigration vertical, or you have real estate, big thing in there, right? But they're focusing on real estate. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't put these things together, and that's kind of what I did see at the time. I mentioned Uber. If you go in Uber, you can get an Uber Black, and you can get an Uber X, and you can get a scooter, and you can get a Uber Eats in every restaurant, right? And I mean, that's basically connecting all of this, putting communication in there. We put milestones in it, and that was for me the gap. So I didn't want to become a traditional player in this. I didn't want to do one of the verticals or make the one vertical better. I wanted to be that employee experience, which I like, because I like the consumer grade idea. I think about how people relocate. How can you get the pain out of this, what they're experiencing every day, and that's what we solved for.
Mhm. So how does like the technology behind what you guys have built, how does it function? How does it work? Because you've got this whole platform, it's around telemobility, but there's a lot of pieces to that. Can you just kind of dive into like how the platform works?
Yeah, good question. So it's integrating with a lot of these suppliers that I mentioned, right? Because that's what
Mhm.
you want. You want to pick, everything basically, as I would, was explaining our relocation experience, getting not even hundreds. I mean, it was more than hundreds of emails. I mean, we work with the, largest companies in the world, and we looked at the stats, and sometimes people get up to 1,000 emails. I mean, think about getting 1,000 emails from 10 or 12 different providers. You don't even know which one you should read or not, considering all the spam that you get. Then thinking all about these documents that you get. You have to sign this, you have to do this. You have a relocation policy, a 50-page. Then they send you a destination PDF, which talks about your country or city to go in. I mean, who reads a 50-page document? Nobody. I mean, like literally, like nobody, right? So if you're thinking about this, what really happens still every day still happens, right? When they don't use Velocity, I go like, okay, so how can you make that better, and what does the tech need to do to actually solve that? And the first thing was, it has to be a native mobile app. So if you're thinking about your experience, and I was just coming from London. I was there for a business trip last week, and I fly United. So you have an app, and you use an app, and you get your boarding pass, and you just change your flight and get your whatever you see the assignment, all of this. I mean, you don't see anybody anymore, right? You don't need an
Mhm.
agent. But then when I go into the app, and I don't know, need to do something with my mileage account or something, then it actually routes me to their web application, and that's a bad experience. Usually you're on a website, right? So I go like, this a website is not what we want to do. So we want to be native, and we built that basically, and our CTO built this from the scratch. I mean, from the start, on very, very early, as a native mobile app. And that is very different what you see in industry. You still see that, not with none of our whatever competitors or like the traditional players. So nobody can invest in that. It's really, really heavy. When you're thinking of, you build this on the Android side, you build this on iOS on the Apple side. So that was the first thing. And then API first. So it's all about API integration. That's the second thing, right? And it has to be scalable, right? We relocate tens of thousands of employees. So think about this global, it has to be scalable. And that was basically the framework we put out very, very early, and said like, hey, we were in 2016 as I started, and I bootstrapped for 3 years, right? So, it has to be, even though it's a heavy investment, but the investment is a long-term investment. And seeing that in 2016, I think that was the right thing, where people or companies still think about this, how much can they actually invest into mobile technology? And for us, obviously, that's all what counts.
Yeah. So when you think about like relocation in general, like how has it evolved for companies? I mean, because and like when are companies even at the right point where they can handle something like this? Because it seems to be quite an expensive thing, especially with everything involved in that. How have you kind of seen the prioritization shift for companies over time, and like and even finding the right partners for you. Like, how have you kind of identified some of these new partners to bring on?
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's interesting to see that, right? I mean, if you're looking through the years, company is over 9 years old now, and we came into 2020 with COVID, right, where COVID hit us. I mean, the whole industry was, as you can imagine, companies weren't in the offices anymore. I mean, not all of them. Some did relocate, but we tripled the first 3 years and we doubled the other years, including the COVID years. Why was that? Because we had technology in place, right, which others didn't have, and still supporting employees that needed to relocate even through COVID. Um, it definitely changed. It changed because people work remotely or hybrid now, so there's less relocation, I would say, in general. Um, than maybe before, the 2020s. It didn't really affect us too much because we growing still, right? We take a lot of market away now from the traditional providers. Um, and companies think about rather now how they can do more self-serve. And as I was explaining, how many times have you actually gone to a counter at your airline to get a ticket, right? You don't really do that, right,
Never.
anymore, right? And that's kind of what relocation is doing. So they're thinking about the policy and policy redesign because cost savings can be very, very easily achieved when they switch these policies, especially for people that are, you know, um, lower and mid-level employees, maybe also interns. So they don't give them the full benefits. They don't give them everything, paid by the company, a mover paid by the company, temp housing paid by the company. They're basically saying, here's $20,000 or $10,000, and good luck. Good luck in all times was they really just only get a check, a payment. Here they get technology that actually is self-service. I was just mentioning, when do you need really anybody? When you book your flight, you go on Expedia, you go on United, whatever it might be, right? What you're going to use, or you're using Uber. I mean, it should be a self-explanatory app that has all these features that you're looking for, a marketplace where you can self-serve. And that's what companies are leaning to rather than, hand holding. Sure,
Mm.
for an executive, maybe even with an AE in there. I don't say that it's not needed. And as I always say, with Amazon, if I have an issue with Amazon, I am looking for a very quick resolution. I'm not looking for, waiting for a day that somebody gets me back. I just want to chat. I might have a chat bot. It can be AI, but I need to have it resolved quickly. That's how I see about this. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're giving them a very quick way how to resolve a problem or to connect them to a supplier directly rather than having a person manually being on the phone and trying to maneuver this with them with phone calls and emails, which is not today.
Do you have metrics on like how much more efficient this makes the companies you're partnered with? Because I would think it's a lot less time they have to spend. I mean, especially these HR departments, like they can focus on all the other internal stuff instead of this.
Well, not only this, I mean, we're collecting all these metrics because obviously the tech, not only the app, every time they tip on anything, touch everything, we just record it and track that data. But there is a lot of things that we're doing. So one thing is actually for new hires, we're decreasing the time it takes somebody to identify what kind of policy they're getting because we're just taking this survey in already on the app. So the policy will be designed basically right there for this employee. The app configures automatically based all the services that you're actually getting through your policy. And when you hire somebody, when companies hire somebody, they will be much quicker to send them an offer letter because we know already if they have children, if they're a homeowner, if they're a renter, that determines all the policy types. So they can hire quicker. They can have internally, obviously, a much faster way of how they relocate. Because if they take in 60 days, usually 90 days to relocate, they can do this much faster. And they can do this. We have a client, actually multiple clients, but their spend got cut in a third on that. And we're talking about relocation costs, 50, 100, 200, $300 million a year. Some clients have, right? We're not talking about thousands. Enterprise clients, they relocate between hundreds and tens of thousands of employees a year. So it's massive with a better experience. NPS scores, ours are like about 76, which is almost a perfect NPS score.
Yeah. Wow, it's really. I mean, there's so what are companies finding now relocation wise? Like, what is the benefit of this for them? I mean, especially in this digital work age, like you're not seeing any slowdown in that with people with remote work because that seems to be something that's still popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think remote was yesterday, kind of. I think hybrid is the new norm. I mean, most of
Mhm.
our clients are back. I mean, they pay billions of dollars for their, amazing, office buildings that they all built. And I think for a product, for a company that has products, physical products, it's definitely a need. It's a must to have them back, right? So I think a lot of companies actually came to hybrid. So usually they have the employees in 2 3 days. Some, as you probably read in the paper as well, like 5 days even now, right? So smaller companies, not enterprise, I would say mid market, probably maybe 50-50. Um, Really on the Fortune 1000, 2000. That's really our clients. Have larger volumes, so it's not affecting. AI might affect that, or is affecting that, right? Because they don't need to hire that many people anymore. I mean, that is definitely another thing which you would see. I think the you know remote work, that was a nice try. I don't think that it works for these large companies. They want the culture, they want the people there. I mean, we've seen this every day, and it works for them. Does it work for every company? Probably not, but for a lot of the larger ones, that's the way they decided to go.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be this hybrid approach that you mentioned is what's here to stay for right now. I mean, some of these companies have these big office buildings, and just having them empty is just waste. So they'll want and the performance and productivity in person. There's so many studies showing that how great it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it is interesting to see, but it hasn't had that much of an effect, anyways. It seems like on what you guys were doing. How was it managing during COVID time, like just that whole period? Because there wasn't, I mean, anything going on relocation wise then, really. It
Well,
seems
it was. I mean,
it
we were
was.
fortunate. Yeah, for us, it was because you're a tech, and we were because we have pharma companies, biotech companies. It still were functioning, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, and the other large companies that we had, they did not want to leave their employees hang dry, right? Because think about this: you had an assignment, or you were supposed to move to Cupertino or to Menlo Park or to I don't know to New York City or to London or to Singapore, and all of a sudden you didn't know when you're moving. I mean, at that time, nobody knew it takes a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, a year. But the employees all had the same question. Hey, if I'm moving to London, what does it mean for me, right? So they use our tech, self-serve, and our team to basically keep them engaged. They didn't want that this talent leaves their job in the future. So that's what we did through the time. So as I said before, we doubled actually in the times through COVID 2020 and 2021, because we were the only one, who could actually do that. We have, video integrated. Actually, in fact, I was in Singapore in the beginning of January 2020, and I flew through Hong Kong, and the Cathay flight from Hong Kong to LA was half empty.
Wow.
And I go like, to the what is going on? I mean, a half empty flight, right? And
Yeah.
the flight attendant said, well, there's like a virus, like a flu virus or so. It was in January. I came home and I said, this is not a virus. I mean, this is not like a flu. This is crazy. And think about
Yeah.
this: half the I mean, the plane is half empty. But I came in with a full plane like a week before, right? So there's something going on. So I talked to my CTO right away, and I said, hey, we have to create something more. We have to get video in it, in-app video in it, and it has to be, more about this, not being in person anymore. And that was a game changer for us. As I
Smart.
said before, we was the only one who had a native app, the only one who could do that. We really got a lot of clients and said like, yes, we want to engage, or we still need to move talent even though there is COVID, but we have manufacturing sites.
Mhm. Is that like what you just mentioned, like around manufacturing sites? Is that one of the biggest reasons besides like what are the biggest reasons why relocations happen? Like what have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, one is obviously manufacturing side. We see that a lot with, we have like large companies that, the Intels of the world, as you can imagine, the Qualcomms of the world, the Apples that actually do that, right? They have new,
Mhm.
I mean, you probably read $10 billion here, $5 billion there investments. That's what they're doing. The other is just getting the right talent into place, also into their offices, into their headquarters, into their country units. I mean, when they hire new, it's probably 70% of that on the tech, on the big tech, is new hires, right? It's just really new hires that they're relocated. They want them in the office. They want them there. I mean, I talked to a lot of people at the time, and they said, like, this remote work for me, I don't know if I work for Netflix or I work for, for Meta, or I work for whatever company. There's no difference when I work at home for me. It's just exchangeable. And that is very, very risky for a company, right? If you cannot actually do this, we just talked about this return to office. That has a lot to do with return to office. Get them in the culture, get them there, give them the meals, do all of this, have them work in there, breathe the vibe of the company, and become somebody there. So that's why they relocated, a lot of these, a lot of talent. I mean, one is lack of talent, and the other one is new talent. And the other one, the last thing is, also career, right? If you want to have somebody, getting up in the management, then usually you relocate them, either to a different country, give them you more responsibility. That's also what you do. So you have intra-company and you have new employee relocation, really.
Mm. So, what are some of like your aspirations now? Like, what's your long-term vision for what you're doing, and just kind of like how do you see this space evolving over time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of AI, right? So we've been on machine learning for about 5 years. So we had a whole team just on the machine learning before OpenAI and all of this came out. So we were like, we were recommendation engines that from Amazon or from Netflix. People that are like you, they like to consume these services, right? Based on your policy, that's what you like. So it's not about going on Google and trying to go through websites, through sites of sites, or scroll down and find a supplier. These are the suppliers that actually match for you. We show them that in the journey where they are. If you decide to move tomorrow from Florida to New York, it's very important for you that you find your apartment first, right? Because
Mm.
you might not need all your furniture. So why would you look for a moving company right now before you haven't found an apartment,
Mm.
right? Or like a home. So it's, you have to do that first. You're not interested in it. You should not be interested in a moving company today. You should be looking at your home. And then you look at that. So that's kind of what the app is doing. And that's what AI is doing, right? So we do a lot of this recommendation engines. We do a lot of agentic AI. That's also what we presented at a Big Four conference actually in Florida. Agentic AI, that means, how can different AI agents work together, to service you as an employee, on the back end. So what people used to do with emails and phone calls with different suppliers, we do this basically with technology. And a
Amazing.
good example for this is, maybe that is something that occurred to you, but if you miss your flight, and for us, you have like a one-way move, like it's your final move, you miss your flight, what happens,
Mm.
right? A lot of things happen afterwards, right? So you have to rebook a flight, and then you maybe have a driver picking you up, a car service picking you up. It's corporate relocation, it's all paid for. Then there is a temporary housing unit waiting for you, right? That has to be rebooked. The driver has to be rebooked. Then there might be a real estate agent that waits for you that has the next day showings. This has to be rebooked. And all of this, which is now, think about this, how many hours, days, even if how long it takes. This can be done with agentic AI. These connections that we have, these integrations that we have, and we're building, that actually will resolve that. So this will be fractions of a second without a human being will be able to rebook you on the flight, to get the temp housing unit ready for you a day later, or maybe even a few days later. And if this all works together, then the efficiencies, I mean, as you can imagine, for our company, of others, and also the costs come down dramatically, right? Because you don't need
Mm.
people for that. Just all
Yeah.
agentic AI, and that's where I see the future going. Right? There's a lot of AI that go into the market. At least we see that. I don't think the competitors really see that yet. I mean, they might see it, but they don't have an answer for it yet. We're building that.
It's amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. That was all the questions that I had. I think it's a fascinating space that you're in because it's a space that, I mean, now is even more popular. with hybrid and with people coming back to work. And just, it's an area that needs to be streamlined, that you've explained pretty well how you guys have streamlined it. And it's awesome. And it's something that, if you have the relocation experience much easier, there's more people willing to relocate, and you probably can attract better employees because of that too, if the relocation is part of it. So it's a big difference having this done correctly. So I'm just excited to see where you'll take it next. And thanks for coming on.
Well, Ben, was awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.